Do you struggle with anxiety or anxious attachment? Well, in the podcast today, I wanted to talk about my experience with anxiety and anxious attachment today. So, welcome to the Men's Mental Health podcast. I would describe my attachment at the moment as slightly more on the anxious attachment side. It doesn't mean I have anxiety all the time. It doesn't mean I'm like, I get offended by everything. I've developed thick skin being in project management and sales over time. But it does mean there are certain things that are going to impact me differently than how they might impact someone else. And it does mean I need to put things in place for myself. It does not mean that, I can't handle rejection, because I certainly can, even though it might hurt in some cases, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to share my experience on this. And really, it's something I've really had to come to terms with in this year in particular, and really acknowledging it. My old tendency of how I deal with my emotions as a man would be to just like, no, I'm secure, I'm cool, push the emotions away. Well, it would have been a couple of years ago anyway. That's how I'd have handled it. That I just realized that's not healthy. By dismissing who you are and what's going on for you, as a man, I feel like that, well, as anybody, as any human being, I believe that is really unhealthy. And as a man, like, there are still these kind of stigma, these labels of like, you got to be strong and not show emotions and things like that. And I'm not saying you need to have like an anxiety fit or like meltdown in front of women or people in society. What I'm saying is, if you feel like you've got anxious attachment, what I've come to learn, and again, this is just my experience, obviously if you do want further support, go and seek a professional. But what I've come to learn is the way I handle the relationship with myself, which is the most important relationship I believe any human being can have, is with themselves, and therefore with other people. Because, like, there's secure attachment, there's anxious attachment, and there's avoidant. And by being like, no, I'm secure, like, I don't have, all of those things, when actually you are struggling, you're really impacting your relationship with yourself. And if I'm being upfront and honest with someone, saying, I do struggle a little bit with anxious attachment, and I'm working on myself, and I'm doing that, doing this, doing that. And, I just, I manage it, I work through the emotions. And like someone, whether it's like an intimate relationship, dating, or someone else, and someone comes along and they're like, oh, no, that's not for me. Well, they're not right for your life, in my personal opinion. And it doesn't necessarily make them a bad person. They may just not be able to handle it. They might be anxiously attached themselves, but won't admit it, right? Or they might be an avoidant, right? So here's like 5 points I want to share that have really helped me work with anxious attachment. The first one, and this is just my experience and what I've learned about it and what I've learned about myself. And maybe you relate, maybe you don't. Again, I'm not giving the answers here. I'm just sharing what has worked for me. Essentially, what anxious attachment is like, if you're like close to someone, or you care about a relationship, whether it's an intimate romantic relationship or not, it could even be close friends, family. If you get like a little bit nervous about them, like going a bit quiet on you, if it looks like signs like they're going to leave you or ghost you, or those kind of things, that's like an anxious attachment worst nightmare. And recently, I actually had a situation that really opened it up for me when I was dating someone I really cared about. She was amazing, even though it was very brief. Amazing human being, and not going to say a bad word, not going to share anyone else's situation, of course, on here. And it went in the space of a week from his pictures of us are looking forward to seeing you, can I plan the next day, all these kind of green flags, and going great. And I was communicating as normal, and then suddenly, I'm not feeling it anymore from her, of which I don't chase. And I like to understand what's going on. We had that conversation, and it wasn't to be. And I put my boundaries in place and said won't talk to her anymore, and she understood that. Just put my boundaries in place, ended well that conversation. But for me, that was like, as someone with anxious attachment, like one of the toughest things that could ever happen. Of course, like, you could be in a long-term relationship and someone could die or divorce you and those kind of things. But for me, like where I was, that was probably one of the worst things that could have come across. But also, it's, things come in life to educate us, to grow us. For me, it's like, oh, this is going brilliant. I see all these great signs. She wants to meet, and then suddenly, like, oh yeah, I've changed my mind. That's like being a 3-year-old child. And actually, this is what came up for me again. And then, like, your parents sort of abandoning you. That is that kind of feeling. Not, I've got 2 beautiful parents I'm very blessed with, but it is that kind of feeling as an example. And yeah, like that comes onto my first point about anxious attachment. The first thing is acknowledging it and accepting it. Maybe it won't be with me forever. I hope not. It'd be good to be a bit more secure. And it doesn't mean, and again, for me, it's not like, there are different degrees of it and different way people handle it, but becoming conscious and aware of it, I believe, is a real strength for me, because I can manage my state a lot more, and my relationship myself. But acknowledging it and understanding, having a lot of understanding and compassion. So for me, and I might get a little bit emotional as I share this, for me, when I've shared this before on my podcast, but when I was 2.5 years old, my brother died. And that impacted me as a young child. And then seeing my parents going to the hospital, being away from them for a while. And not only that, but I actually got lost as a kid, running out of the house and lost for hours in our village. Caused a lot of like abandonment and fear of abandonment. And that actually happened a couple of times. So seeing myself as a 3-year-old or very young child and going through those experiences, I've got like nothing but love for myself and understand totally why I might be going through anxious attachment. And also the fact that I've had some quite tough dating, relationship, things like that. Now and then my 20s, was a bit, crazy, going out partying and not really committing, but, myself and stuff like that. I've never cheated on anyone or anything like that, but like going through, I didn't, I wasn't always helping myself in my 20s going out drinking, but, you go through those phases, don't we? But for me, like when I look at myself and actually some of the things I've gone through, it doesn't mean you need to have had like severe abuse or stuff. Obviously, if you've had like severe abuse or complete abandonment and things like that, that's obviously going to impact you a lot. But like even experiences you would just dismiss, don't dismiss them. Acknowledging that you've got like anxious attachment. You don't have to shout it to the world, but just even you definitely don't have to shout it to the world. And it's not something you need to bring up on the first date. I don't think I brought it up. There's once we were talking about like attachment styles because we're in the same boat once on a first date with someone. She was really cool. But like, it doesn't mean you have to bring up your attachment style on the first date, or even to your friends and maybe your close friend you want to share, or shouting it from the rooftops. But like just acknowledging it really, really helps. And being okay with it where you are now, because when you push away who you are and what's going on, that's like really damaging, I feel. The second thing is have boundaries for yourself. And what I mean by that is like, things that will impact you, things that make you feel not so good. Like maybe you eat certain foods, you feel a bit more anxious. Maybe when you watch something or listen to something, it makes you feel anxious. I know for me, I've now and then avoided certain social situations because it would bring it up a lot more. Particularly when I've been single and, it's just not worked out some recently. And then there was like maybe a wedding or event I went to and just me being like, yeah, maybe I'll sit this one out kind of thing. Um, I know, that's not always something I would do, but like just doing little things like that can really, really help. And then, yeah, just the information, the food you're consuming, putting boundaries in place for yourself and knowing what that is. If it's like, oh, like you were exhausted from work, put boundaries in place, right? The second thing is put boundaries and standards. This is the third one. Boundaries and standards for other people in your life. If you've got anxious attachment or feel like you do. And what I mean by this is like, I'm not looking for perfection in a woman in dating. Like I'm currently single, but when I go and date, like I'm not looking for perfection. We've all got our flaws, and I certainly have mine. There are certain things though that are just like a complete utter no for me, and there are, women have their complete and utter no's, right? If a guy's been an idiot on the first date, I know any self-respecting woman is not going to see him again, or like completely ego dominating. But like for me, like, and this applies to friendships and all those kind of things. But like for me, from being hurt in the past and knowing myself, there are certain boundaries and standards I have to put in place so I don't hurt myself, don't get hurt with anxious attachment. One of them, red flags. One of them, just to share, is bad texters, right? I'm just going to call this out, and people may not like what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. Being a bad texter is bullshit. There's no such thing, I don't believe. If someone texts you who you knew and you trusted and said, oh my God, we've won £1 million. We've got to get to this place by like 5 p.m. And it take 5 p.m. blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't go, oh yeah, I'll get back to him later because I'm a really bad texter. No, you'd be like, reply instantly, wouldn't you? If like the absolute love of your life was right, like in town, and like, oh, hey, I'm here, and like, oh, I need to like meet you in the next 10 minutes. Would you be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I just didn't get back to you? No, of course not. You would reply straight away, right? So I believe it's just either you're getting in your head, that's fearful, or someone's just not a priority. And for me, a bad texter is a red flag, just personal preference. And I used to play that kind of role as well. I used to be like, oh yeah, I'm a bad texter, all that kind of thing. Now, there are some people I don't text back as much because like I can't text everyone. But if you're like dating someone or you're with someone and like you're claiming you're a bad texter to get back to them, do you really care about them? That'd be my question, right? Of course, you can take someone for granted as well, but like for me, a bad texter is one. Someone who's emotionally inconsistent is a red flag for me, because that's really hurtful. Someone who's not willing to have a conversation on the phone and be like, and again, this is just from past experience, things that have hurt me. Like someone who's like, it's really, I can't get on the phone with you for another week or so because I got such a rammed schedule. That's like rubbish. Like I fell for that. Like I believed it. It's easy to buy into it when you've got anxious attachment and you're like on the people pleasing element. But like anyone's got time for you, who cares, right? Again, it comes back to the texting. What was the other one I was touching on between there? Yeah, inconsistency. Someone is like, really great seeing you, smiley, all over you. And then next minute, like, oh yeah, I'm not really sure. Like that's happened in my life. And for me, that's a red flag because they're not emotionally stable. So that's going to impact my anxious attachment as well. But, you've got green flags like great communication, fun, growth driven, enjoy being in their company and her company. And those kind of things are green flags. But also have that for friends and like, just have your standards, because boundaries are really, really important for anxious attachment and know what they are. You don't have to have a massive list of 100, but just a few, right? Number 4, allow yourself to feel emotion, right? It's like, I feel anxious, right? I'm going to just be like happy. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be calm, right? No, sometimes you need to go and feel the emotion, not every minute of every day, but if you allow yourself to feel an emotion for 60 to 90 seconds, it will pass through you and will neutralize, as long as you don't keep yourself in the head and you actually feel it in the body. There's a few books on that. I learnt it from Peter Sage, but there's a few people who taught it. He referenced it himself though. Just allow yourself to feel the emotion rather than run from it. And then number 5, kind of links it with number 2, but these are just some points. Make sure you're exercising, you've got the right nutrition, you're doing things like breath work, mindful stuff. And yeah, you're just overall conscious on how you're treating your body and your mind, because the food you eat and the exercise really impacts our emotions as well. So there's nothing worse than having a massive hangover for me. I haven't drunk for months, but nothing worse than a big hangover and going overboard with drinking. For me, with anxious attachment, I'm going to be, in the past, I've been like, if I met a girl, got a number and stuff like that or whatever, there would have been like, I'm looking at my phone like a lot, and when I'm like hungover because I'm like anxious, I'm like all these kind of things. Whilst other times be quite cool. So that's what I would say as well. Be very conscious of who you are. Overall, like, people could judge people who've got like anxious attachment and be like, oh, I don't want to be near them because they go back. But if like they're self-aware, like I feel like I am, and they know how to handle it, that's actually a real strong sign of emotional intelligence, I believe. If someone shares their vulnerability and who they are and what they're doing about it with me, like that's like, for if I saw, a woman came along with that'd be actually very attractive for me. They're very open and honest. Someone with a complete guard and not letting me in their emotions, that's not so attractive for me, if I'm being honest. And I realise I have to lead that way as well. I'm not going to be like crying on a first date, like I said, or anything like that, or my deepest, darkest secrets. But like, when I believe if you're open and sharing, didn't even have to talk about attachment style or anything, early on or anything, if you're dating, or even with meeting new friends and things like that. But like, if someone's like, oh, that's not for me, like, you don't want them in your life. For me, like, anyone who judges, that is like not very emotionally intelligent, like, just in my opinion. Or they might be, if they're like, actually, I don't think like our styles would go well together. Fair enough, right? That's cool. But someone judges me, they've probably not got their shit handled, if in all honesty. But yeah, just like, when I'm honest with myself and who I am, I find the right people come around me anyway. So those are just my tips on anxious attachment and how I deal with it and sit with it. Hopefully that's useful for you, other men who may be going through this as well. So thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very soon.